Chapter 371, Illusion or Reality. The translucent figure was none other than Han Li inhabiting Ling Yunzi's body. After slipping past the light barrier in pursuit of the middle-aged man, he did not immediately give chase. Instead, he halted in place, lifted his gaze toward the pavilion ahead, and quietly released his spiritual sense to probe the surroundings. In that instant, a spark of realization flashed through his eyes. Meanwhile, the middle-aged man hastened to the pavilion entrance. Just as he was about to step inside, Han Li's gaze snapped toward him. A veil of faint light shimmered at Han Li's glabella, and a minuscule, translucent sword projection burst forth, crossing thousands of feet in a blink before plunging straight into the man's consciousness. The strike was swift, silent, and flawless, lasting no more than a breath. The man froze mid-step. His eyes bulged, his body pitched forward, and he collapsed lifelessly onto the ground. "Administrator Wang! Are you all right?" The gray-robed elder cried out as he rushed forward and lifted the fallen man. The moment he checked, his heart sank. The man's breathing had stopped, and not a trace of vitality remained. Suppressing his shock, the elder swept his gaze around and released his spiritual sense to scour the restricted area. Yet with his cultivation, he could never pierce Han Li's concealment. After a brief hesitation, panic overtook him, and he suddenly shouted, "Help!" Instantly, chaos erupted within the scripture library. Several cultivators rushed out, and upon seeing the lifeless body, terror spread like wildfire. Han Li ignored them all. Calm as drifting mist, he passed through the crowd and entered the scripture library, releasing his spiritual sense once more. The library was divided into 3 floors. The first 2 held miscellaneous records, travel journals, illustrated guides, and the like, unremarkable items without value, left unguarded and unrestricted. The 3rd floor housed cultivation arts, sealed within a complex restriction. Han Li had no interest in cultivation manuals. He remained on the 1st and 2nd floors, reading swiftly. By now, everyone had rushed outside, leaving him free from disturbance. The killing at the entrance had been deliberate, bait to empty the halls. One scroll after another passed through his hands, granting him broader knowledge of the Bramblewood continent, though little of it was of true use. As he turned aside, he noticed that fewer than a quarter of the time Dao runes on the mantra treasured axis projection remained lit. He did not know exactly what would occur once they were extinguished, but he could sense the outcome would not be trivial. With no time to dwell on it, he withdrew his gaze and continued reading. Before long, his movements paused. His eyes fixed upon an aged, yellowed book, a travel journal penned by a wandering cultivator. An illustration within seized his attention. A bald, browless, golden figure, long golden feelers extending from its head, hooked spikes adorning its body, exuding a fearsome presence. It bore a striking resemblance to a gold-devouring beetle monarch. Below the image was an entry. "Today, I traveled to the Golden Flame mountain range and witnessed a heaven-shaking battle that ravaged the land. It must have been a clash between immortals. By fortune alone did I escape." This creature was one of the 2 combatants, yet I could not identify it. A faint gleam lit Han Li's eyes. This was clearly not the same gold-devouring beetle monarch he once possessed. Perhaps another of its kind. His own beetle monarch had yet to be recovered, despite all his efforts, and this was the first meaningful clue he had encountered. He committed the passage to memory and continued reading, but found no further mention of it, leaving him quietly disappointed. With time pressing, he set the journal aside and picked up a scripture on spirit plants. After a few pages, he halted again. Illustrated, there was a vivid purple flower, the very same he had seen earlier in the mountains. The spirit-devouring flower lures living beings with its fragrance, then feeds upon them. It may be used in body refinement pills, but it harbors a corpse poison that must be expelled through a difficult secret technique before medicinal use. Understanding dawned on Han Li. No wonder those flowers brimmed with spiritual qi, yet remained untouched. Just as he prepared to read on, a sharp buzzing rang out. He turned to see that all the time Dao runes on the mantra treasured axis projection had gone dark. The projection flared brightly, rapidly solidifying as it spun at high speed, emitting a deafening hum. Han Li glanced outside, intrigue flickering in his eyes. The buzzing roared in his ears, yet none beyond seemed to hear it. Though the axis spun furiously, it harmed nothing, as if detached from reality itself. Suddenly, a speck of black light formed at the vortex's center, expanding in an instant to dye the entire axis pitch black. As it revolved, a black vortex, eerily similar to the green vortex on the wall of light, took shape. Before Han Li could react, a terrifying suction force erupted, locking onto his soul and wrenching it from Ling Yunzi's body. He was utterly powerless. The last sight he glimpsed was Ling Yunzi's body shuddering, then dissolving into countless motes of light that vanished into nothingness. Darkness swallowed his vision, and his consciousness faded. After an unknowable span, he awoke. His eyes opened upon the familiar wall of light. The black vortex flickered a few times, then vanished, followed swiftly by the wall itself. Everything returned to normal. Within his cave abode, joy and disappointment crossed Han Li's face. He was relieved to be back, yet regretful that he had gained no tangible benefit from the heaven-controlling vial's strange phenomenon. Closing his eyes, he reviewed the entire out-of-body experience, seeking some hidden gain, but found nothing. With a soft sigh, he formed a seal, and the mantra-treasured axis appeared behind him in golden radiance. As expected, all 360 Time Dao runes were extinguished, just as before. The golden time law thread coiled around the axis, now dim and weak. With a gesture, Han Li drew it back into his body. At that moment, thunder roared. Taoist Xie appeared amid golden lightning. "Congratulations on mastering the laws of time, fellow Taoist Han. Even with a second-tier Dao pill, it was sheer fortune," Han Li replied. "The laws of time are truly unfathomable. You witnessed what happened just now, did you not?" Taoist Xie looked puzzled. "I saw nothing amiss. You merely seemed lost in thought after summoning the wall of light." Han Li paused, offering no explanation. From Taoist Xie's words, the 360 seconds his soul had spent in that realm had amounted to but an instant here. Did the so-called Golden Origin Immortal Region truly exist? Was the Iron Beast sect real? Were Ling Yunzi and Li Yuanju genuine beings or illusions? If all had been false, why did it feel so vivid? Unable to unravel the truth, Han Li frowned. Then, after a long while, shook his head with a wry smile. The experience was too strange to comprehend now. He would have to ponder it another day. Han Li let out a soft breath and cast the matter from his mind, no longer dwelling on it. Now that the laws of time lay firmly within his grasp, his foremost goals were clear. Obtain the latter half of the spirit refinement technique and advance into the golden immortal stage. With these thoughts settled, he donned his transient guild mask and summoned the array plate projection, only to see that his mission for the spirit refinement technique remained unanswered. He sighed faintly and put the mask away, yet his heart was not burdened by disappointment. Such matters depended on fate, and at the very least, it appeared he would not fall into that maddened state again anytime soon. He was now merely one immortal acupoint away from the golden immortal stage. Should he succeed, his odds of surviving within the immortal realm would rise sharply. Yet, the path to that final breakthrough remained shrouded in uncertainty. A thoughtful look crossed his face as he flipped his hand. Revealing the gray stone slab bearing the great universe origin arts, he had likewise released a mission seeking its second half, but that, too, had met with silence. After gazing at the slab for a moment, Han Li suddenly stood and stepped outside. He had resolved to cultivate the great universe origin arts at once. Even with only half the scripture, it might grant him insight into opening the final immortal acupoint. And even if it did not, the Big Dipper origin arts had already strengthened his physique, cultivating the more complete. Great universe origin arts could only be beneficial. He handed the heaven-controlling vial to his giant ape puppet, instructing it to continue tending the spirit plants, then departed his cave abode and flew to the island's central peak. This summit towered of all others, laying the entire island bare beneath his gaze. With a sweep of his sleeve, an azure sword chi flashed forth, slicing away the mountaintop to form a smooth, level platform. He then cast out numerous materials radiating star power, most of them taken from Tao Yu's portly guard, a cultivator of star-based arts who had amassed no small hoard. Opening his mouth, Han Li released a ball of azure flame that engulfed the summit, softening stone into malleable earth. Hand seals followed in swift succession as the materials flew into the flames, refined and fused seamlessly into the mountain. What had once been an ordinary peak soon gleamed with brilliance, and in the span of 4 or 5 days, the summit was wholly transformed. The cylindrical mountain had become a pagoda-like platform, vast and imposing, suffused with radiant blue starlight. Countless runes etched with stellar motifs covered its surface, forming a deeply intricate array. It bore resemblance to the star-gathering platform of the Origin Realm temple, yet surpassed it in both scale and splendor. Drawing from that ancient array while blending in his own mastery of star formations, Hanli completed this structure. From the Portly Guard's storage tool, he had studied refined star arrays and cultivation techniques, knowledge once gathered to refine the 7 bright star rings. Now, a 7 bright starlight array lay embedded within the platform, its ability to gather starlight far exceeding the temple's original array. More crucial still, it resonated directly with the 7 bright star rings, allowing their power to amplify its effects. Satisfied, Hanli descended onto the platform and nodded lightly. Seating himself cross-legged, he closed his eyes and studied the gray stone slab in his hand. Time flowed on until day surrendered to night, and the heavens filled with stars. Opening his eyes, Hanli gazed upward and swept out 8 blue crystals exuding an aura akin to starwash stone. These were star heaven stones, richer and purer in star power, and thus superior array fuels. Though few in number, more could be acquired through the transient guild. The 8 stones slid precisely into the array's slots, blue light surging forth and racing across the platform. Soon the entire array blazed with azure radiance, the stone itself turning translucent. Star diagrams emerged in midair, revolving slowly in a breathtaking display. At that instant, the starlight above intensified, pouring down as a massive pillar that enveloped the platform. This star power was at least 10 times that of the old star-gathering platform, and Hanli nodded in quiet approval. Yet it still fell short of his needs. Forming hand seals, he chanted softly, and the 7 bright star rings flew forth to hover above him. The array flared brighter still as 7 vast pools of blue light appeared, each filled with flickering runes and arranged in a profound pattern. The rings descended and settled into those lights, causing both the platform and the descending pillar to blaze with renewed intensity. Star power cascaded like a roaring waterfall, shaking the surroundings. Only then did Hanli close his eyes and circulate the great universe origin arts. This scripture governed the manifestation of the first 7 profound acupoints and surpassed the Big Dipper origin arts in depth and subtlety. A dull boom echoed as the great pillar split into 7 condensed beams that plunged into his body. Though smaller, they were denser than before. Nearly solid, 7 blue lights bloomed upon his form as star power flooded his profound acupoints. Pain flared like countless steel needles, drawing a slight furrow to his brow. He inhaled deeply, steadying his mind. This agony remained within his tolerance. Hand seals flowed one after another as the starlight intensified, blue mist enveloping the platform while his body shone within it. Night slipped away, and as dawn rose, the stars faded and the descending star power vanished. Hanli's robes were soaked in blood, his face pale, yet excitement gleamed in his eyes. The 7 profound acupoints had expanded, and the true extreme film around his body had grown brighter and denser. The earlier Big Dipper origin arts had merely been a fragment. Now, with the great universe origin arts, both his acupoints and physique had advanced further. Clenching his fists, he felt the strength surging within. In a single night, his true extreme physique had already improved. Opening all 18 profound acupoints would surely elevate him to an even greater height. Suppressing his excitement, he swallowed a restorative pill and entered meditation. An azure glow wrapped around him, forming a cocoon of light. By nightfall, the glow faded, revealing a fully recovered Hanli. He looked up at the stars and activated the array once more, drawing starlight down upon himself and resuming cultivation. A year passed in silence as he refined his 7 profound acupoints again and again through the great universe origin arts. Now seated upon the platform, blue light coursed over his body. His 7 acupoints shone twice as bright as before. His physique greatly strengthened, and his true extreme film more radiant than ever. Excitement flickered across his face. not merely for the physical gains. Over the year, he had discovered that the immortal acupoint, overlapping his profound acupoints, had also expanded and grown sturdier, able to contain greater quantities of world's origin qi. It was an unexpected boon, for he had never heard of immortal acupoints changing after their awakening. Chapter 373, Response. Han Li drew a long breath, steadying his heart. His cultivation of the great universe origin arts had only just begun. Although the first 7 profound acupoints had already been opened long ago, allowing his progress to surge forward, the remaining 11 would surely not submit so easily. With this thought in mind, he slowly exhaled and closed his eyes once more. The array atop the stone platform rumbled back to life, drawing boundless starlight from the heavens and pouring it into his body like a celestial river. Time flowed on in silence, and in what felt like a fleeting instant, 5 full years slipped by. On this day, a deafening roar suddenly erupted from the island, shaking the skies. A radiant blue figure shot upward, circling through the air like a roaming dragon. Space within hundreds of kilometers quivered violently. Colossal waves surged across the sea, and the clouds above were blasted apart. After a long while, the turmoil subsided, and the blue figure halted, revealing Han Li himself. A translucent blue layer of light enveloped his body, clinging closely to his skin and possessing an almost tangible solidity. It closely resembled the True Extreme film, formed after his True Extreme physique, yet now it was more fitting to call it True Extreme armor. Streams of blue radiance coursed endlessly across it, like countless stars revolving around his form, while 18 points of blue light shimmered over his chest and abdomen. After 5 arduous years, Han Li had finally grasped the first half of the great universe origin arts. Even he felt astonishment at the speed of his success. By his own estimations, this art should have taken decades to master, yet every anticipated bottleneck proved illusory, each profound acupoint opening smoothly in succession. All of them overlapped perfectly with immortal acupoints he had previously unlocked. Reflecting on this, he surmised that his earlier cultivation had laid a foundation that eased this path. Even the star heaven stones he had worried about proved sufficient, with some remaining unused. More heartening still, the overlapping immortal acupoints had grown broader and far stronger. At that moment, Han Li let out a deep roar and drove a fist toward the sea. A terrifying force burst forth, blasting open a fist-sized black void in the water and forcing the surrounding sea aside. The power pierced downward, smashing into the seabed and carving out an unfathomable pit, faint red glimmers flickering at its depths. He then opened his hand and chopped downward, cleaving the sea anew as a vast trench formed, splitting even the seabed into a yawning rift just as deep. Retracting his hand, Han Li nodded in satisfaction. Though he had only mastered half the art, his already formidable physique had surged to new heights. He had used less than 30% of his strength, yet the blows were already terrifying. At his will, the True Extreme armor faded. He descended to the island, landing upon the stone platform, and with a sweep of his sleeve released azure light that enveloped it. A dull rumble echoed as the platform separated from the mountaintop. Chanting softly, he caused it to shrink rapidly before storing it away. This platform had cost him immense effort to construct. Discarding it was unthinkable. Returning to his cave abode, Han Li entered his bedroom. For 5 years he had cultivated by night and healed by day, never truly resting. Now, with success achieved, exhaustion washed over him, and he soon fell into a deep sleep. Only after a full day and night did he awaken, refreshed and renewed. His first stop was the medicine garden, where all spirit plants thrived as ever. The giant ape puppet had followed his orders, nourishing the primary being with spirit liquid from the heaven-controlling vial. It had already sprouted, promising another harvest of Tao warriors. After briefly inspecting the rest of the cave abode, Han Li entered his secret chamber and sat down to ponder his future. Foremost in his mind were 2 goals: obtaining the latter half of the spirit refinement technique and advancing to the golden immortal stage. Both were difficult within the Black Wind Sea, and the thought of leaving stirred within him. Centuries had passed. The northern glacial immortal region's pursuit should have waned, and his strength far surpassed what it once was when he faced Tao Yu. Now, He was confident he could defeat Tao Yu even without Taoist Shay. The idea took root swiftly, yet memories of hardship restrained him. After careful thought, he resolved not to leave just yet. First, he needed clarity on the outside world. Donning his transient guild mask, Han Li reviewed the missions he had posted. Suddenly, joy lit his face. A response had arrived for his spirit refinement technique mission. Forming hand seals, azure light spilled from the text, and 15 minutes later it flew into his chamber, condensing into a gray-cloaked figure wearing an azure cat mask marked with 16. The masked figure scrutinized him sharply. Han Li cupped his fists in greeting. The figure nodded. "You accepted my mission. You know what I seek. Do you not?" Han Li asked. "There's no need for riddles," the figure replied with a raspy chuckle. "You want the second half of the spirit refinement technique." Han Li smiled faintly. "Then let us speak plainly. Do you have it?" "Of course. Otherwise, why would I respond?" "Excellent. Can we conclude the exchange today? My compensation will satisfy you." "The reward is generous," the figure said, "but the technique is priceless. It is not enough." Han Li frowned slightly. "Then what is your proposal? Come to this place in 1 month. We will speak face to face." With that, the location was specified, and the communication ended. Removing his mask, Han Li summoned the jade slip map of the Black Wind Sea and fixed his gaze upon the marked spot. Deep at its outer fringes, he stared in silence for half a day before resolve hardened in his eyes. Rising, he went straight to the medicine garden. With a series of swift hand seals, azure light flashed as all restrictions were undone. Array tools flew into his hands, and in moments, the garden was dismantled. Spirit plants, soil, and the primary bean were all stored away. Without pause, Han Li cleared the rest of the cave abode as well, leaving nothing behind. After nearly an hour, Han Li emerged above the island, his figure suspended in the sky. With a casual sweep of his sleeve, layers of restrictions surfaced around the island, then shattered one after another, array tools flying free before vanishing into his sleeves. He had cultivated here for centuries without mishap, yet the repeated celestial disturbances he had caused meant this place was no longer suitable to remain. He cast one last glance at the island. Just as he prepared to depart, the sea below erupted with a splash, and a white demon beast surfaced, calling out loudly. Han Li raised a brow, recognizing it as the pig dolphin beast. He descended, and the creature swam eagerly toward him, tail splashing. "Have you come to bid farewell?" Han Li asked with a faint smile. Stroking its smooth head, the pig dolphin beast rubbed against his palm affectionately. Han Li flipped his hand, producing a pill and tossing it over. The beast's eyes shone as it snapped the pill from the air. "I should thank you for the hard ink crystal you gave me. It helped greatly. This pill is my farewell gift," Han Li said. The pig dolphin beast hesitated, clearly reluctant to part. Han Li gave its head one last pat, then transformed into a streak of azure light and vanished. The pig dolphin beast stared blankly after him, and only after a long while did resolve appear in its eyes before it sank back into the sea. A month later, at the fringes of the Black Wind Sea, an azure streak descended upon a secluded island nearly 10 kilometers wide, revealing Han Li in his azure tiger mask. As this meeting concerned the transient guild, he wore no further disguise. After a brief inspection, he landed. This region lay desolate and hidden, black clouds drifting overhead like a veil of mist, exuding a cold and forbidding aura. Han Li glanced upward briefly, then sat cross-legged as azure light rose around him. This was the agreed location. In truth, he had arrived 2 days earlier in secret, scouring the surroundings with care. Dealing in a forbidden art with a stranger warranted utmost caution. Nearly a day passed. Suddenly, Han Li opened his eyes and stood, gazing into the distance. A speck of gray light shot toward the island, arriving in an instant. It resolved into a gray-robed figure wearing an azure cat mask marked 16, the same individual from before. They assessed one another. The cat-masked figure cupped a hand. "You must be fellow Taoist Raccoon 11. I am Wildcat 16. Apologies for the delay." "No matter. I only just arrived," Han Li replied. Relieved words followed, but Han Li frowned slightly. "Let us dispense with pleasantries and speak of business." Wildcat 16's demeanor differed from before, stirring Han Li's suspicion. "Not here," Wildcat said calmly. "Please follow me." After brief hesitation, Hanli followed. For half a day they flew, Hanli keeping his distance while sweeping the surroundings with his spiritual sense. The farther they went, the thicker the black clouds became, until the sky was drowned in glacial darkness. The sea below turned black under dense yin qi, radiating bone-chilling cold that could freeze even body integration cultivators solid. Hanli's unease deepened. At last, he halted midair. Wildcat 16 stopped and turned. "Why stop, fellow Taoist Raccoon 11? We've flown long enough. Tell me where we're going. I dislike wandering blindly," Hanli replied coolly. Wildcat answered gravely that matters involving forbidden arts demanded secrecy. Discovery would make remaining in the Black Wind Sea impossible. Hanli snorted. "There's no one here. Speak plainly, or I leave." Unperturbed, Wildcat paused, then admitted, "I do not possess the second half of the spirit refinement technique. It belongs to a friend waiting ahead. I act on their behalf." Hanli faltered. Wildcat continued, explaining the gravity of the matter and the friend's wish to remain unseen. Silence fell as Hanli weighed his options. Wildcat waited patiently. "At least tell me how much farther," Hanli finally said. Relief flashed through Wildcat's eyes. "At our speed, no more than 2 hours." They pressed on. After another hour, faint rumbling echoed ahead, growing louder with each moment. Soon they halted again. Before them raged countless gusts of inky yin wind, towering black vortices and smaller tempests alike, filling the void with wailing howls and sobs. The sounds alone made Hanli dizzy. He hastily circulated the spirit refinement technique, yet dread intensified. His spiritual sense, rivaling that of a golden immortal, should not have been affected. Alarm surged as he sensed faint instability within it. Fearing backlash, Wildcat spoke. "These are soul-stirring winds. Without protection, even true immortals cannot endure them." Relief flickered through Hanli. "So we must enter them?" "Yes, but only briefly. I've prepared for this," Wildcat replied. Without further words, Wildcat produced an egg-sized black bead filled with shifting shadows. Chanting softly, he unleashed a ring of black light that expanded to envelop them both. Instantly, the chilling winds and ghastly cries were greatly subdued, and the oppressive cold eased. Chapter 375, the second half. "I did not expect you to possess a treasure capable of resisting the soul-stirring winds," Hanli remarked, his gaze lingering on the black bead with clear curiosity. "It's nothing special," Wildcat 16 replied lightly, offering no further explanation. "Let's move." With that, he turned and plunged straight into the vast expanse of raging yin winds ahead. Hanli followed without hesitation. As they advanced, the surrounding soul-stirring winds grew increasingly violent, surging from all directions and swallowing the space around them. Shrill wails echoed like countless resentful spirits crying out in torment. Yet, the ring of black light released by the bead remained firm and unyielding, allowing the winds to do no more than ripple faintly across its surface. With the soul-stirring winds weakened to this extent, Hanli and Wildcat 16 were easily able to resist their effects, pressing onward without delay. Even so, the howling grew ever more terrifying, as if they were drifting through a sea of evil phantoms. "Do you know the origin of these soul-stirring winds, fellow Taoist Wildcat 16? Hanli asked, surveying the surrounding yin currents. "They feel as though they are blowing directly from the depths of the underworld. Without your treasure, I would never have dared to venture this far." "These winds have existed for countless years," Wildcat 16 replied. "Their true origin is unknown. However, there is a rumor in the Black Wind Sea that this place is linked to the Infernal Realm, and the winds leak out from there." "Does such a realm truly exist?" Hanli asked. "Who can say?" Wildcat 16 smiled faintly. "It's only a legend. Best not to take it too seriously. I've heard that these winds span an enormous area and cannot be crossed directly," Hanli said thoughtfully. "Even the Black Wind Sea relies on teleportation to connect with the outside world. I wonder if a golden immortal could force a path through." "Several powerful cultivators have tried," Wildcat 16 replied, shaking his head. "None succeeded. Long ago, a golden immortal attempted it and was trapped within for decades before retreating. He said the winds at the deepest point were so fearsome that even a golden immortal's soul could not endure them." Hanli frowned slightly. "I didn't expect them to be so formidable." With his mastery of time laws and Taoist Xie at his side, He had briefly considered whether this might serve as an escape route if his identity were exposed. Now it seemed that notion was little more than wishful thinking. "This place is a natural barrier," Wildcat 16 said. "Perhaps only high zenith cultivators could pass through, if such beings even exist in the northern glacial immortal region." Hanli nodded and fell silent. They continued onward for some time, until the surrounding winds suddenly stabilized and ceased growing stronger. Just as Hanli was pondering the reason, Wildcat 16 halted abruptly. "We've arrived," he said. With a series of hand seals, the black light surged outward, enveloping them as they descended into the sea below. The water here was black as ink, exuding a freezing aura that seeped even through the bead's protection. Hanli gathered a sphere of seawater and discovered it contained abundant yin qi, rivaling true yin waters, yet its energy was chaotic and unusable. They soon reached the seabed. Wildcat 16 led him into a deep trench, produced a black jade badge, and began chanting. Black light flooded the depths as 5 massive stone pillars rose from the seabed, each etched with glowing runes. The pillars' radiance converged into a rotating sphere of black light, and with a soft crack, an inky cylindrical spatial passageway opened. Hanli noted its resemblance to the one on Darkvale Island and tested it with his spiritual sense, only to be gently repelled. "This is the place," Wildcat 16 said, gesturing. "After you." Hanli nodded and entered without hesitation. Wildcat 16 followed, surprised by his decisiveness. Though calm on the surface, Hanli was inwardly tense. Under normal circumstances, he would never enter an unknown place so easily, but for the spirit refinement technique, retreat was no longer an option. Still, with Taoist Shai's golden immortal strength and his own trump cards, he was far from helpless. The world blurred, power surging around him, and he prepared to unleash his treasures, only to find himself safely within a vast secret realm filled with lush greenery. A towering black mountain dominated the center, riddled with cave abodes, while strange restrictions suppressed his spiritual sense. Hanli discreetly tested his lightning teleportation array connection. When he confirmed it remained intact, relief flickered through his eyes. Wildcat 16 reappeared beside him. "My friend awaits you." They entered a cave hall furnished with little more than stone tables and a black shimmering screen. A tall, red-robed figure stood before it. As he turned, Hanli's eyes narrowed. It was Worm 3. "This is fellow Taoist Worm 3, Wildcat 16 said. "He is the one handling your mission." Worm 3 gestured for Hanli to sit. Wildcat 16 departed, leaving them alone. "Do you have the second half of the spirit refinement technique?" Hanli asked without preamble. "Of course," Worm 3 replied, producing a gray jade slip. Hanli pressed it to his forehead. Though most of its contents were sealed, the visible lines alone confirmed the truth. At last, the second half was before him.